Welcome to the DTC Concepts YouTube channel. I am Dan. You know that I love to do home tours. I've done a lot of celebrity home tours. Now I'm starting to take a look at regular people. So one of my favorite places to watch on YouTube is actually the Dwell YouTube channel. They've got some fantastic home tours, some people doing some really unique things. I'm going to tell you what I like, maybe what I would have done different, or help you possibly get the look that you see here. So today, we are looking at a creative renovation, inspires two musicians to put down roots in Rhode Island. Now, I live on the West Coast, but I have a fantasy about having a home on the East Coast one day. I think I would just be able to wear sweaters year round and it would always be fall in my mind. So let's take a look at this home tour.
I rented places for years. All of a sudden we moved here, my mind was just like exploding with all these ideas. So I tried to use those as a way to learn more. My name is Spellman. We're here in Westerly, Rhode Island. I'm a musician. We're about 3/4 of a mile from the beach. We have 100 acres of preserved forest that borders our property, and across the street there's a family farm, and we live above our garage in this apartment. This was a garage bay that we turned into our studio. This structure...
Okay, right away, I am obsessed with this house, and I also want to be friends with these people. The exterior is beautiful. It's classic East Coast. I think, again, if you're doing a renovation, try to bring some age to your home. That home does not feel brand new. That home feels like it has character and life while still being maintained. You know, obviously you might not be able to have 100 acres of forest around you, but I love it. And then as we come inside, already you can tell they had a vision in mind. And I think this is so important when you're doing your space. What do you want to feel in there? Not necessarily what do you want it to look like. I don't think they started it by going, we want to just put in this specific type of wood or this specific wall. I think they probably started with what do they want to feel when they're in there. And everything is calming but warm, and it invites you in. It's unique. There's different pieces up that really are a reflection of them, and I think doing that in your home is so important. When we have guests over, one of the first things that they always ask me about is a guitar that hangs on my wall. They ask about the little dent in it, and they want the story of that. So bringing in things that are representative of you into a space is always the right answer. You know, when I'm hanging art with people, they'll say, well, what is supposed to go here? And I ask, well, what brings you emotion? So, that's just a couple of the thoughts in my head right as we step inside here. So let's take a look at the recording studio.
Sure, it was a one-car garage that was built in 1934 with the original house. And then in 1954, they added the second car garage and they put an apartment above it. And then in 73, they added this third car garage, and then they extended the apartment into the living room. So yeah, I loved it because they left these exterior shingles. So we kept them. We just painted them, cleaned them up a little bit. But I think it adds a real nice texture. With this shelving, we just wanted to give the backdrop of this space just a little bit more interest. I tried to make the space as soundproof as possible. I used sheep's wool insulation. I put sheetrock and shiplap on some of the walls. I like to keep all the wood untreated. I don't like having any synthetics in the home at all. It's just basic pine shiplap. I just rip it to different widths, and I think it gives it more of a Scandinavian look.
Few things to take away from what he just said. To start, that blank wall that was just a regular wall where they did some built-ins, it created some depth, some storage. You can see it's not all just shelving. He left spaces to hang some of his guitars. I think it's great. It is very much a representation of the family that lives there. You know, the walls, he talks about ripping the planks to different widths to create interest. Again, we've been, taught to believe that everything should be perfect, that everything should be just right. It is the imperfections that tell the most interesting parts of the story. I think people get so obsessed with what they are supposed to do in their home instead of what they want. He wanted raw, untreated wood. That's what he did. The result was something beautiful. He clearly is a creative person, and he created a space that allows him to make his art, and I just love it. Even watching this, my brain relaxes and I feel like I'm inspired just looking at it. Also throughout his space, you will see lamps. You will see a little bit of recessed light, but you will see lamps. Create mood with light. It is so important. Lamps, sconces, plug in, hardwire, anything that you can do, put that lighting in.
This is a good corner of the house right here. We like to warm our feet by the wood stove, listen to a record here. What this house has taught me is the power of harnessing the sun. The apartment's on the second floor. There's all these south-facing windows, and when the sun is lower on the horizon in the winter, the light shines right in. And so if it's a sunny day, there are days in January when we have the windows open because it's so warm, and it's just with the wood stove and with the sunlight coming through the southern windows. I think that Westerly is only on the up and up. Things are going to change regardless. I think that
He is so right. Light makes such a difference. So when you're doing your home, and if you have the ability to remodel and you're creating the space from scratch, think about your windows and your placement of those windows. In my personal home, almost the entire front side of my house is windows. I don't have a very large home. I have a 2,100 square foot home. Now, that being said, my living room and dining room feel very expansive because the sight line goes out to the street. In the back of my house, from the floor to ceiling in the kitchen, it's all glass with mullions in it, but it's all glass. So it creates, no matter where you're scanning in my open living areas, you've got light coming in and your eyesight goes to greenery outside, and I think that's important. Another thing that I loved that he said was this little corner. When you're doing your home, think about how you want to use that space. What will that space provide to you? For him, it was to warm his feet by a fire and put on a record. That creates, memories. That creates a slowing down of life. And I think that that is so important. Looking back at my home build, one of the things I regret most is actually not creating built-ins that hid away my television. I feel like if that wasn't staring at us regularly, it would get used less. So don't just do something because you think you're supposed to. Think about the moments you want to create there. I'm inspired by this. This makes me want to rethink my built-ins in my living room and what would I rather people do when they come and sit down in my space. And 80% of the time it wouldn't be to sit and watch TV. It would be to engage with each other or to take a breath and relax. So I think that's very cool. I like what he did there, and I liked that that's one of his favorite spaces of the house.
if folks like myself who live here can contribute to the community in positive ways to help that change and steer it into a positive direction, then that's a good thing, and that's the type of place that I want to live in.
I absolutely loved this home tour, and at the very end, that house just glowing from the inside at dusk. I love how the shingles just blend into the landscape. I also think, a little takeaway is at the end, he talks about the change, being the change in the community, being a part of the community. That also helps you love where you live. I think that's very important. But if you liked this, if you found it helpful, please give me a like, subscribe. I'm gonna come back and talk about some more home tours and what I love about them and how I think you can bring some of this knowledge to your space.